Hey guys, Jesse Sharp with you here today from SharpeAero, ready and excited to show you our VFR flight log and why we think it's probably one of the best VFR flight logs you'll be able to find out there. So let's jump right in. Alright, so we've got two sides to the form. This side is going to be where all the magic happens. I'll get there in just a second. And on this side, this is going to be what you're probably used to seeing for a VFR flight log. So we've got our big planning section where we figure out our routing, navigation details, altitudes and elevations, performance numbers, and fuel calculations. We've got our overall required fuel for the trip broken down into a fuel analysis, and we've got a little bit more fuel information here in terms of our starting fuel weight, what fuel we're going to burn on the trip, and what we're going to end with. Of course, those numbers are going to inform our weight and balance. And then if our weight and balance all checks off, and after checking our POH, we're also going to want to make sure we've got a spot to write down our ETAs that we've filed with a flight plan, or when our flight school expects us back if we're flying with a flight school. But let's get to the side where all the magic happens. This is what we're used to. All right, flip over to the other side. First thing you're going to notice is we've got one side right side up, one side upside down. What the heck's up with that? Well, I'm going to get back to that in just a second. This is one of our favorite parts about the flight log, but let's jump into the actual flight log specific section itself. So you'll notice we've got a bunch of gray sections here, and we've got numbers in them. Anything that's gray on this side of our flight log is able to be pre-filled based on the planning that we did on the inside. So it brings all of these numbers that are most important to us here on the flight planning section and brings it to our flight log, so that when this is in our knee board, this is going to be what we're looking at most of the time, it brings those numbers right up front for us, so we're not flipping around between pages in the airplane. We got everything we need right in front of us. So let's take a look at what some of those sections are. Well, we've got a couple different charts here. Each chart represents its own leg in the flight journey. So let's take a look at one of them. On the very top, we've got couple heading numbers. We've got the set heading point heading, the compass heading from the compass card, and the planned magnetic heading. We have the same information for the destination heading. So of course, once we get to the set heading point, we then have to fly to the destination. So we've got the magnetic heading and the compass heading. We also have our planned altitude, our planned power setting, and our planned indicated airspeed. Let's take a jump down now to the flight log section here where we're actually tracking our flight. So Mitchell here would be our set heading point on a quick flight that I planned from Stratford to Kincardine. So we fly to Mitchell to get our set heading point, and what we're going to do is write down our time over our set heading point once we get there. Now you'll see again in the gray boxes down here, we've got some numbers pre-filled out that we determined again from the inside of our planning. We've got our pre-planned ground speed, our distance remaining to the destination, Kincardine in this case, and our ETE, our estimated time en route. So if we know the pre-planned ETE was 36 minutes, add that to the time over, and we get our ETA of 12:36. Now we're ripping along on the flight here, and we get to our first checkpoint of Seaforth. What we're going to do now is write down the time over Seaforth. Then we're going to figure out what the time has been since our set heading point, how long it took us to get there essentially. And now we know we've gone 8 miles in that amount of time, which would allow us to update a revised ground speed. And with that revised ground speed, knowing the distance remaining to the destination, we can get a revised estimated time en route, which we can then use to inform our revised ETA, estimated time of arrival. So you see it's really nice and logically organized step-by-step in chronological order of how we get from the time over a checkpoint all the way to a revised ETA in order. It makes it really nice and easy and simple to sort of progress through to get the numbers we're looking for. One other thing is we've got that last column over here, which is a revised heading. If we find the winds aren't as forecast, or maybe we fudged up some of the numbers on our planning, we want to make sure that we're tracking the new headings we're flying and at what time. All right, let's go down to the next section down here. We've got the frequencies section. So pretty simple chart down here to keep us organized once again as we're flying along. We're going to need to change frequencies. Let's get those numbers right in front of our eyes. So we've got different airports and different frequencies: ATIS, ground, tower, en route, uncontrolled or MF airports. And of course we've got some space to write down whether or not there's a Unicom, whether or not it's an ATF or an MF, and if that MF is being if you're going to make the radio calls to something like Timmins Radio over in Muskoka is another section of the flight plan we got here, or if it's going to be to traffic. FSS or FIC, and center if you want to get something like flight following. All right, going over to the other side here, this is actually going to be our airport section. So we've got different sections for different airports that we'll be visiting along our trip. So we've got the name up top, we've got an area for a diagram, and we've got all the relevant information we're going to need to know about the airport underneath. So we've got elevation, circuit height, expected runway, the length of that expected runway, what the winds are forecast to be, what we think our crosswind might be, and takeoff and landing distances. And of course, there's notes underneath so that we have an area to write down any important information that we find from the CFS or NOTAMs or whatever else we might find along the way. So as an example here, Stratford has right-hand circuits for runways 17 and 23. There might be deer on the runway. Taxiway Bravo is only allowed to be used during the day, and runway 23 is displaced by 1,030 feet. Etc. There's lots of different notes that you could put in there, so we leave it wide open for you to take any notes that are important for you to have on your trip. Okay, let's get to this magical portion of why we have these guys facing opposite directions. So you finish up your planning, and then in the air, you're going to want to have your flight log typically as what you're seeing while you're en route, so you can be figuring out your numbers and your ETAs and whatnot. However, as you start to get and approach to your destination, you need to know your airport information. So, as you flip this page up, it is now going to be facing the right way up for you. So it's printed upside down, so when you flip it over, it's now right side up. This seems like a really small detail, but we haven't seen anybody else do this, and it's actually helping us stay so much more organized in the cockpit. And the really big thing is that when you're not cranking your neck around to try to look at stuff upside down, you can get your information quickly, you know exactly where it is, and that's going to let you keep your eyes outside more and ultimately keep us safer pilots. So that's a really high-level overview of our VFR flight log. We've loved it so far. Again, helps keep us super organized in the flight deck and ready to take on all of the aviation challenges we face on a daily basis. So hope you love it as much as we do. We'd love your feedback. If you've got any feedback, questions, comments, please reach out. We love hearing from you guys. And safe flying, everybody.